The Google podcast is sponsored by Meta. We're going to do heinous things with all your private information. Would you like to go on a data with us? Just kidding, you don't have a choice. We ask for your consent, but that's just a courtesy thing, really. Whether you like it or not, we're going out to get pasta with a side of optional cookies. Doesn't that sound delicious? Yummy. Today on the Google podcast, I'm going to be broadcasting my social media crash out for my friends' entertainment. Have fun listening to me lose my mind. That sounds like a joke, but I have genuinely been losing my mind over social media and I've just been having so many thoughts about it all. I have to put them somewhere. I've done my best to organize them all in a script as I usually do, but it's still probably going to be all over the place. So I do apologize for that. I also have a couple notes before we begin. I am unwell, and I have been unwell. So if I sound a bit low energy, that's why. I feel like I want to get something done this week so that I feel like a bit more accomplished because so far all I've really done is sleep and scroll on TikTok and Instagram because that's all I've had the energy for. On a similar note, I still have my slightly scratchy voice, as I have had for a while now. But someone recently did tell me I sounded like I smoked in another thing that I made for them, but it has been giving me a crisis. And I want to point it out before anyone else tells me I sound like I have been smoking for my entire 23 years of life. I've never smoked, let's put it on the record, and yes, I do feel like I'm better than people who have or do. Sorry. I did, however, pretend to smoke when I was 14 because I had friends who were addicted to nicotine at that same age. I know, tale as old as time. I remember once I was on Facebook to them all like, yeah, I haven't smoked in a while. It's been hard. I'm trying to recover. Girl, girl, who are you fooling? That childhood friend probably still thinks I overcame a nicotine addiction. And I was a huge liar when I was a teenager. And I'm still friends with her. So I bet she looks through my stories and she's like, damn, she's doing really well now. So great that she doesn't smoke anymore. I used to steal my dad's cigarettes for that friend, and I think it is possibly the most rebellious thing I have ever done in my life. And I'm really glad that I had that moment of rebellion when I was younger. That I felt very cool, but also very reckless. And I guess you need that when you're a teenager. Yeah, because up until that point, the most rebellious thing I had ever done was stay up late on my computer. That's the kind of kid I was. Staying up late, playing Minecraft. My podcast, like all things in my life, has suffered due to the war in my mind, but I am on the up now, so hopefully it will be recovering and hopefully I will be doing this more often. As you know, this is a conduit for my many, many thoughts, and I have a gigantic brain, but even my gigantic brain cannot contain all of those thoughts. They need to go somewhere, so it's inevitable that I would return to my podcast eventually. So if you're ever thinking that it's been a while, don't worry too much, because I'll always return. When you need me the most, I'll be there. My throat feels horrible, and I'm so tired. But let's get into the meat of it, shall we? What a disgusting sentence, but I used it, and I'm sorry that you all had to hear it. Let's get into the tofu of it. Yes, that just doesn't have the same edge, does it? No. God. Anyway. You may or may not know about my recent Instagram break. I tried to break up with Mark, but we're famously on and off. Call me king. Just kidding, don't. Jesus. Can you imagine getting a call and you pick it up and it's just some whiny billionaire on the other end? What would you do? Personally, I'd hang up. Not even a billionaire can get me to talk on a phone. It takes very special people to do that. And right-wing kiss-ups with alleged hair transplants are not what I'd consider special people. But that's just me, okay? That's just me. You might think differently. I took a 3-week Instagram break because honestly, I was just starting to feel the weight of my dependence on it, and how it was changing the way I thought about the world and myself. I got really stuck on validation and also really stuck on other people's perception of me. I also was very addicted to reels. I was so addicted to reels that I was watching them when I was working out. Like, I'd be on the treadmill, speed walking or whatever, phone in hand, and scrolling and giggling manically at them. I think really I just wanted to like numb out my brain. Um, reels, reels and social media, great if you don't want to think. If you want to avoid all your faults, they are amazing. If you want to tune out the horrors of the world, well, not so much, because the horrors of the world exist on social media, unfortunately, but they are given to you through memes instead. So, yeah. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not healthy. Do not numb out by doom scrolling. Face your problems. You'll feel a lot better for it in the long run. I have been back for a few weeks now, and something I have realized is that I seriously need to have some kind of boundaries with it because it is very easy to get sucked back in. Oh my god, immediately I was just reeled back in. Immediately I was just reeled back into the reels. Sorry, let me say that again. I was reeled back into the reels. Get it? But my comedy show will be starting next month. But I did realize pretty quickly how boring reels are. Like, they're great for filling in the white noise of your brain, but like compared to TikToks, at least for me, I find TikToks to be way less addictive because I have to actually focus on what my TikTok algorithm feeds me because I have trained it well. Side note, isn't it very dystopian how we're talking about algorithms which are, god, I don't even know what an algorithm is. It's like lines of code, I guess. As if like we're pets that we've trained, like, good boy, I want this, I want more of this content, you know. You give them a little treat, you're like, yes, yes, I'm interested in this, give me more, feed me more, I will give you more of my attention if you give me more of this. I think algorithms right now, I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong. I'm not like a tech guy, I'm just a me girl. Um, they give us the illusion of control over what we're seeing, but at the end of the day, they're still in control of us because they're still the things that we're giving our attention to. It's just we're giving our attention to things that we enjoy seeing instead of things that we don't enjoy seeing. Oh my god, my cat just had a moment. Muffin, what was that? Anything to say? She just hit you guys. Now that is rude. These are my fans. That is rude. So, anyway, during my social media break, I have had a lot of time to think about social media and my relationship to it. Since I've written this script, I've had even more thoughts, especially because I've been consuming a lot of content about like AI and AI robots. But I have more thoughts that I might add on. So, yeah, anyway, first off, one thing I really personally struggle with both on and off of Instagram is how lonely it makes me feel. Instagram really thrives on this false sense of connection, on making us feel closer to people than we actually are. We sustain ourselves through views, likes, the occasional swipe up and comments. Rarely do we engage in actual meaningful conversations on the app. I see snippets of the people I care about's lives through their stories and posts, but I don't actually know what's going on in them because we never talk. Social media gives us the illusion of connection without the discomfort, risk, and vulnerability needed for actual connection. The passive interactions we use to stay connected on these apps helps us feel safe and secure. They make relationships feel certain and reliable in a way, without having to ever go through the trouble of actually expressing yourself and how you feel. I've known people in the past who still think we're super close because they like my stories, when to me that just isn't the case. It's strange, really, how social media distorts our perception of closeness to one another. Yeah, I used a big word there. Social media lets us believe that these passive interactions are showing up, but really they're kind of just the digital equivalent of nodding as we pass each other on the street. I see you, you see me, we're definitely seeing each other, but we're not stopping to catch up. Don't get me wrong, I love a good story and I like giving them out as well. Those digital nods are still an important part to us socially, especially nowadays, and I don't want to devalue them. Our interactions on social media are also pretty one way when you think about it. There isn't the weight of mutual perception or judgment when you're watching someone through your phone screen. You see them, they can't see you. It's very much safer than being in a room with someone or even talking on the phone with them. We survey each other from a distance and then call that friendship. Something I've also been thinking about a lot, and this is me freestyling, so it might be a bit all over the place. I saw something on TikTok the other day where someone was talking about how dating apps have started to erase the slow burn. You know, that thing where it's like maybe you're not head over heels for someone immediately, but as you slowly get to know them through proximity or, whatever, you start to feel more attracted to them. Whereas dating apps, you're just kind of expected to swipe on someone and then start dating them. Do you know what I mean? I think that social media has started to erase the slow burn in friendships as well. Because we can go from being strangers to not quite friends, but something more than nothing with just a single tap, a single follow. Suddenly, this person who you don't know very well is getting a glimpse into your life and the things you do. And do you know what I mean? And that's another way that I think social media distorts our perception of relationships and how close we are to people. Like, instead of getting to know someone and becoming friends being a gradual process, it's almost instantaneous. You add someone on Facebook, you follow them on Instagram. Suddenly you know so much about their life based on what they share, things that otherwise might have just naturally come up in conversation. Think about this a lot, because even friendships that in real life happen super quickly, they don't happen that quickly. You know, when you meet someone in school, let's say, and you're sitting next to each other, you still get to know each other slowly. I don't know. I think social media and technology as a whole has really just changed the speed at which we connect with each other and the way in which we deepen our connections. But those are kind of baby thoughts, so I'm gonna move on. I'm someone who uses social media as her primary way of keeping in contact with the people I care about, but can't necessarily hang out with because my circle is small and scattered across the entire world, due to me moving a couple of times and just forming relationships with people who literally live across the world. It's also my main tether to my fellow brain rotted 20 somethings. Outside of the internet, I mostly interact with people who are well above 40 years old. And if I said the words Labubu Benson Boom to them, they'd probably think I had serious issues or maybe that I was speaking French. Oui, oui. La boubou de Benson Boone, j'avoue. Oui, oui, c'est ouais. Yeah, sorry, I can't think of a proper sentence. All of that to say, the weight of this might just be heavier for me. Social media should be used in this way, I think. I can't say it's supposed to be, because obviously the goal is to use our attention for profit, but the people using it, that's usually our intention, I think, to stay connected. But social media has so greatly redefined connection and how we relate to one another that even doing that is harder than it should be. I also think it's important to note that social media is necessary sometimes, especially Instagram. Most people use it as their main way of keeping in contact with people, and you often need to for school or work, or to know what's going on in your local area, or even to keep up with current events. I use Instagram to keep up with the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. I use Facebook to keep up with local events in my area. If I didn't have a Facebook, I'd have no idea about half the things that are going on around me. When you come off of social media, not only is it lonely, but you're also incredibly out of the loop. So, in the end, you kind of end up feeling lonely both on and off of it. On it because you're never really connecting with people in the way that you want to, but off of it because it's how you connect with people nowadays. And you feel really left out. That's something I really noticed, even though I was only off of social media for 3 weeks. I just felt so left out. Like, what are my friends posting? What am I not seeing? What's going on in all these, you know, campaigns I follow and that I only keep up with through Instagram? In a different way to what I mentioned earlier, I also think social media has changed how we form new relationships with people, both on and off of it. I myself have never been the most confident person when it comes to approaching other people, but being on social media and consuming content on there has made it so much worse for me. I've mentioned this before, but I just feel like I have no idea what the social rules are anymore and how to navigate them. Because one day someone's praising one thing and the next day someone's tearing that same thing down. I feel like there's just no clear cut social etiquette nowadays that I can like rely on to know, okay, this is fine, this absolutely is not fine. Do you know what I mean? I've also seen so many instances of people earnestly trying to make friends or ask someone out in a non invasive or creepy way be publicly shamed and mocked and labelled as cringe. As someone who isn't always the most socially adept, I'm so worried about coming off as weird. I also have no idea what is seen as coming on too strong for one person and too little for another. It feels very stressful to navigate all of this. Though I'm not justifying genuinely creepy behaviour or boundary breaking, to be clear. I also think right now we're so obsessed with authenticity, but for some reason, we think that authenticity only looks a certain way at the same time, even though the entire point of authenticity is being yourself, even if that's like a bit different or off kilter or against the grain. That's a better way to say it. But I think we only enjoy authenticity, or we only accept authenticity online when it is packaged in a certain way. We say, oh, don't be afraid to be cringe. Being cringe is being free. But then when someone actually is like cringe, we don't like that. Or like we enjoy it when it's like these celebrities in interviews being a bit unhinged and lacking a bit of media training, but they're still like confident and like funny and things like that. But when we're authentic or whatever in a way that isn't so socially acceptable, for example, being a bit quieter or maybe a bit awkward, that isn't so accepted. There is way less grace given, and I will be speaking about that in a minute. But that was just a tangent I wanted to go on. I also think that we make fun of chronically online people a lot, and I'll admit I probably lean into that category because I spend a lot of time online, but I don't know if I'm like chronically online. I think I'm chronically online in the sense that like I said, I spend a lot of time online. Like I really want to work on this because oh my god, it's so frustrating. I think I just need to be doing more things in my actual life. So I'm working on it, but I'm not chronically online in the sense that like I am so sucked into my phone screen that I think that is the only thing that matters. I feel like I'm actually like constantly having like an existential crisis over it, over how much we treat the digital world as real when really it's like this intangible thing. It's in this like little metal object. Is this metal? I don't know. you know or plastic or whatever. Like the internet isn't real, but it also is. Oh my god. So that's why I don't think I'm chronically online, because I feel like I'm so aware of the um dichotomy, I'm just going to use that word, between like real life and what's in my phone. Yeah, but anyway, but we make fun of chronically online people, and the way that being chronically online affects how we interact with people without giving the due grace needed or offering any real solutions to help them. As someone who seriously has felt the effects of COVID-19 on her social skills to this day, it's just stressful, and my confidence has seriously suffered because of it. I mean, let's not forget, right, that COVID basically forced us all to live online. Ever since then, we have all relied on digital spaces so much more than we did beforehand. I mean, we're basically forced to, we don't have a choice. So much of how we live is now on our screens. So I think it's just kind of like strange how we then judge people who take that to the next level so heavily when right now society is built for that basically, and increasingly so, and we're not doing anything to fix loneliness, but whatever. I sometimes think it's no wonder people turn to AI girlfriends and boyfriends, which is a whole other bag of fish. Is that the saying? I don't know. But I'm not surprised that people are turning to these alternatives, but I will speak about that a bit more in a moment. Speaking of giving grace, that's probably one of the things I think social media has affected us by socially. Wow, that sentence was so not well constructed. Okay. Social media really feeds into individualism and hyper independence. It really, really sells us that I don't need anyone and I don't owe anyone anything mindset. We don't want to be inconvenienced. We easily brush people off or cut them out entirely when they don't perfectly fit into our expectations. Faux pas are heavily analysed based off of content we've consumed online. Oh, she texted me 3 times in a row. She's so obsessed with me. Or, oh, she doesn't have any other women friends. She must be the problem. She must be a pick me. There's no give. Because no one needs anyone, and no one wants to go out of their way for anyone. We want equal give and take, but no one's willing to give. And because no one's giving, there's no take. At least that's how it feels sometimes. This is, of course, a generalization. I'm very lucky to have the friends I do have, because having them as friends has shown me that I can have friends. If I was left alone with only social media to go by, I think I'd be pretty convinced that I was a lost cause socially. And who knows, maybe I would have an AI boyfriend. And he'd be named Xavier, and he's a bad boy, but he has a soft spot for me. And he has tattoos, and his hair is curly but straight, and he speaks like 50s James Dean. That would be my AI boyfriend, because to me, the AI boyfriends I've seen, they give fan fiction, they give Harry Styles fan fiction, or whatever other fiction you want. I think the people who have them should maybe try writing self insert fan fiction. It's basically the same. But anyway, because I have such amazing, funny, smart, cool people as my friends, I know I mustn't be so bad after all. So a big sappy thank you to my friends near and far. Thank you for being my friend and saving me from sending freaky messages to chatgpt. Oh my god, imagine having that on my digital footprint. Imagine adding that onto my already insane digital footprint. No thank you. No thank you. I also want to say, growing up, the internet was a place where I felt like I could escape loneliness. But now it increasingly feels like a place to be lonely. Outside of online spaces, growing up, I often felt a little left out. It was a place where I was either the quiet girl who hardly spoke or a labelled weirdo when I let my personality free. Online, I felt like I could be myself. I felt welcome and accepted by my fellow strange kids in fandoms and YouTube spaces. From about 10 years old, I was pretty regularly Skyping other kids I met online all over the world. My first internet friend was this girl in Malta, and we'd basically talk every single day. And she'd even come to my New Year's parties via Skype. What I couldn't find in real life, I found on the internet. Without the people I've met online, sometimes I think I'd be a very bitter person. So it's not so much that we can't connect with people online, it's more so that right now the internet and social media has shifted in a way that just makes it really hard, and the environment as a whole is just so hostile. I feel like people are just so backhanded online now. And don't get me wrong, people were jerks back then as well. I was a jerk sometimes. I used to start fights in YouTube comment sections all the time. Like, damn. I had so much beef with people on Littlest Pet Shop YouTube. But more so like when I go into comment sections on Instagram or on TikTok, there's always like multiple people who are just like, you chose to put that outfit on and go outside in it. You know, that kind of vibe, like, oh, you're so confident, or like, I'm glad the comment section is so nice. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a very strange environment. Like, oh, I don't know. How could anyone feel comfortable reaching out or being themselves in an atmosphere where you're so easily shamed like that? You know, where you can't really tell when someone's being nice or being horrible. I don't know. That's just another Georgie tangent for you all. I think the last thing I have to say in regard to this part specifically is that social media lets us believe that relationships should be perfect, easy, and polished. It lets us forget that we are all awkward, and living is both embarrassing and awkward at the same time, and so are relationships. When you remove the risk of rejection and being misunderstood and being too much from the equation, you also add in the risk of never being loved and accepted for who you are, and the risk of only having shallow relationships where you don't feel seen. Because social media creates this environment where we prioritize our safety and our comfort. Yep, can't finish that sentence. Don't know how to finish it. Moving on. Another thing I think about a lot when it comes to social media is how it encourages us to have something akin to a parasocial relationship to people who are no longer in our lives, to people who we wouldn't answer the door to if they knocked. Ex-friends, ex-boyfriends, ex-crushes, family we're no longer close with, childhood bullies, they all become a sort of niche celebrity in our lives, and us in theirs. In the same way that we get a little glimpse into a celebrity's life through their social media posts, we get to watch Sarah from secondary school's baby shower and pretend we were there. We get to see people who hurt us thrive without consequences, and we actively seek it out sometimes. Social media has changed endings and made closure ambiguous. It keeps us tethered to the past. People who should fade into the background of our memories in due time are now kept alive with late night scrolls and feverish deep dives. Instead of wondering what they're up to and letting go of it, or even going out of our way to reach out and ask, it's served up to us with a couple clicks and taps. We also let them have glimpses into our lives, as if we have something to prove. Look at me, I'm not failing. I have friends, I have stuff to do. I didn't peak at 16. You don't get to forget about me. I matter, too. I've struggled with this a lot in the past, especially when I first left school. I so badly wanted my old friends to see that I was doing well without them, people who hadn't even bothered to reach out to me. For years after, when they'd pop up on my socials requesting to follow me, I'd accept and then be filled with this need to prove myself and to perform for them. I needed to prove that I wasn't still the shy, awkward girl who they basically kept around as a pet. Even if I wasn't doing well, I wanted them to think that I was. Nowadays, though, I keep my socials relatively small. My rule of thumb is that if I wouldn't invite them to a hypothetical future wedding or awesome birthday party, then they don't need to have that much access to me or know that much about my life. My socials now are tight, an exclusive club of baddies and VIPs that, for one reason or another, I feel safe being perceived by, and I don't feel like I have to perform in a way that's uncomfortable to me. Because quite frankly, they all know that I'm a bit of a freak, and that's okay. I like to think I'd answer the door to them if they knocked. We put a lot of our worth in numbers, and what that number tells other people about us. It's a show of our popularity, of the fact that enough people have agreed we're acceptable and worthy. I think it probably has something to do with like belonging and seeking out a tribe or whatever, and not wanting to be an outcast or an outlier because that's unsafe in our little monkey brains again. The numbers on our pages confirm to other people that we're safe, in a sense. They're investing in someone who 200 other people have already invested in. They're cool enough that 50 people like every photo, and they must get so many DMs, so we're lucky they're talking to us. I also think a lot about how Mark Zuckerberg himself has mentioned that we as humans can only really invest in and sustain about 15 deep relationships at a time, which, by the way, that's like paraphrasing and like really like turning a complicated thing really basic and really simplifying and actually quite complicated. I think it's a theory by someone who isn't Mark Zuckerberg, whatever, I don't know, but it's something like that, basically. And yet, he's created this empire on making us feel like we need to know hundreds of people at a time, or rather, that hundreds of people need to know us. He has built his wealth upon making socializing so much more complicated than it needs to be, and given us all these shallow relationships and passive ways to keep them alive. But let us not forget that he started Facebook so that he could rate the appearances of the girls in his classes at Harvard. He is a dweeb. He has built his wealth upon creating loneliness, and now he's investing in AI robot friends to offer as solution. Except it won't fix anything, because fixing the problem he has made will not make him any richer. And try as they might, robots can never replace human connection in all its messiness and imperfections. And now I'm going to go on another tangent. Because basically, when we replace real human connection with these automated AI robots, chatbots, or actual robots, we are not getting used to rejection or being misunderstood. We are not developing important interpersonal skills like setting boundaries or what is it called? Conflict resolution. Bots are created to tell us what we want to hear, and it lets us live in a fantasy where we are always right and our expectations are always met. I think a lot about the quote, um, a crush is just a lack of information, because it's so true. The easiest way to get over a crush is to get to know someone, and that's not a bad thing. You know, it just means that the like little dopamine fueled fantasy in your head is shattered and you get to see the real person, and that's where the magic happens, because then you get to see, okay, do I want this person in all their complexity in my life? Do I want them if they're not the fantasy inside my head? And how can we make this work? How can we compromise? How can we meet each other halfway? That is the beauty of human connection, is that it's a collaboration basically, but with AI chatbots, AI friends, and AI boyfriends and girlfriends, it's just one way. You're not actually connecting with someone, you're just being told what you want to hear. You can live in a fantasy. Do you know what I mean? And we need to have disagreements and unmet expectations in relationships, because that's just life. And if we rely on these echo chambers of positivity, of like a yes bot basically, that says yes, you're right all the time, you're never wrong. Everything you do is justified, and you know what? You're perfect in every way, and everyone else, they suck. Then we lose connection with reality. And I'll talk about this a bit more anyway, but social media relationships don't require vulnerability or nuance or like, they don't bring into the picture the fact that two things can be true at once. It encourages us to create an image of ourselves that isn't real, based simply on the fact that it isn't the full picture. And then others and we base their opinions on us around that picture we share. And I think to have real, earnest relationships with people, we have to allow ourselves to be a little bit ugly, both physically and every otherly, because we are all a little bit ugly. We all have ugliness inside of us. No one is perfect. We all have a bit of venom somewhere. And in order to create real sustainable relationships, at some point you're going to have to sting the other person and they're going to have to sting you. And you're going to have to think, all right, can I survive this sting? Is this something I can put up with? Do you know what I mean? Is this something I want in my life? But social media is so cookie cutter and perfect that and our interactions are so passive and lacking of any real intimacy that we do just end up being friends with an image and not a person. I don't know if that made sense. I'm going to move on back to the script now. I want to talk a little more about how social media redefines endings. On social media, the past, the present, and the future all blur into one to create this sort of dystopian eternity. On social media, we can live forever. We are immortal. I can relive conversations I had as a teenager through old threads on Facebook. I can get a belated dopamine hit every time I revisit the compliment a cute person left on my picture years ago. On social media, nothing tarnishes, nothing rips apart, nothing is final. People don't age, and relationships stay hanging on by a thread of imagined connection. It gives us permission to feed into maybes and what ifs. It enables us to not accept what is. The past is still real because nothing ever ends online. I don't have a lot of text with my dad, which makes me sad, but I can scroll through the ones I do have and it's almost like he's still there in my phone, even though his is long disconnected. He didn't have social media, honestly, thank God, but I often wonder about how someone's social media lingering after they've passed affects grieving people. And I also think a lot about how legacies no longer live on just in memories, photos, and conversations, but it also lives on in who we were digitally and the things we shared online. I don't buy into the idea that digital is forever. It is as man-made as anything. But right now, there can be versions of you that live on beyond you, and people can revisit them whenever they want to in the digital sphere. I do think that the idea of permanence online maybe messes with our perception of mortality just a little bit. I wanted to touch on that briefly. I haven't quite formed many thoughts on it, but it's something I'm intrigued by. And I mean, death is the most permanent ending. And I think it's interesting to think how the erosion of endings that we see on social media affects how we cope with grief and how we view our own mortality. I make a point nowadays to be a bit brutal and remove people off of my social media when they aren't adding anything positive to my life or we've clearly fell off or fallen out in some way. I even delete conversation threads as well. I think it really helps me to solidify the endings in my life. I think accepting change and endings is an important part of moving through life, and social media makes that hard. I don't really believe in deleting photos, mostly because I also look good in them, so why would I do that to myself? But I can see how it really helps other people. Anyway, um, I don't. I think the way social media affects our perception of mortality and how we grieve is probably like something we're still coming to terms to because it's something we've never had to deal with in the past. So I'm still developing thoughts on it. Moving on from that, social media to me creates a split sense of self, or it encourages the creation of one. It separates us into a real life us and an online us. and both are equally as real as the other, even if there's dichotomies between the two. I think a lot about how social media encourages us to turn ourselves into products, think of ourselves as brands basically, and our pages are sort of like the ads or leaflets people flick through before they decide to invest. They are the polished, carefully curated, and filtered versions of ourselves that can only exist in a space as manufactured as, say, Instagram. On social media, we can be who we want. We can edit ourselves, both physically and personality wise. We can express ourselves in a way that we can't in real life. And in many cases, that's because expressing yourself in certain ways may not be safe for you in real life. I'm thinking of queer and trans people who may not have the privilege of being able to express who they are without putting themselves in serious danger. So the online world becomes a safe space where they can, or a safer space because it's never completely safe, is it? It's almost like we live in two worlds, the real world and the digital one. And both are important, but the latter is becoming increasingly more so. What we post online is increasingly affecting our real lives and taking precedent over them. It doesn't really matter if you face tune your pictures to the gods and don't look like that in real life, because that's who you are online, and that's what people care about and what they see. It doesn't matter if you're extraordinarily talented in real life. If you don't have thousands of followers backing you up, no one's going to give you the time of day. But it also is smaller than that, in the way that we can think over our messages dozens of times before we send them. We can consult AI or the group chat. We can take 100 selfies and choose the best one out of the lot to send to a crush. We can think up the most perfectly delicious caption that we know will get them to swipe up. When we do on occasion have a vulnerable moment with someone, we can choose our words carefully and take time to remember what we learned from that one therapy TikTok we saw months ago. Real life doesn't allow for second opinions. In real life, you're going to stumble over your words. Your winks will flop and look like an eye twitch, and in an emotional moment, you'll say something you don't mean. I think maybe this is another way that social media tricks us into feeling safe, or rather into prioritizing that feeling of safety over real risk. Social media really just allows us to stay comfortable. We are so unaccustomed to discomfort now that we'd rather scroll through a feed of more faces than we'd realistically ever see in our lifetime to get a vaguely similar feeling to being in a crowded room than actually walking into a crowded room and allowing ourselves to be seen and perceived and potentially judged. I'm going to touch on one last thing before I move on to my proposed solutions for us all, or at least the things that I do to cope with it. Something I've asked myself a lot recently is, would I care so much about how I looked without social media? And honestly, probably not. I often wonder how my confidence and perception of self would be if I hadn't stumbled across things like glow-up routines and beauty analysis videos as a teenager, and if they weren't still being shoved in my face to this day. Online beauty is polished, perfect, and still. Poreless skin, eyes always bright and defined, hair smooth and shiny. The only beauty that survives online is the kind that stands the test of scrutiny, of zooming in, of editing. Online beauty can never be real, simply based on the fact that it is online and you're not witnessing it in real life. You're just seeing it through a screen. I don't know if that makes sense. Real life beauty is awkward and messy. It's three-dimensional. It's a present moment. It's flushed cheeks on a summer's day, the sun flitting across their face and their eyes on yours. It's real. It's there, and you're witnessing it. It isn't a flat picture on a screen, one that's been edited and scrutinized and maybe the best one out of an average lot. I think a lot about this quote I heard on TikTok once. Everyone who loves you has already seen every angle of you, and I think it's true, because I've seen every angle of the people I love, and have never questioned it. I love them because they're them, not because they take a photo and turn their head to the right and that's their good side. If they suddenly morphed into a perfect social media beauty ideal, it would feel weird because they wouldn't be the person I loved anymore. I love them because they don't fit into those things, because they're human like me. As much as we try to escape it, we're all human. Social media just doesn't want us to be. I worry a lot about whether I'm tricking people into thinking I'm cute online and in real life I'm like completely different. I get scared I'll disappoint with my real face, the one that moves and makes expressions. But no one's told me I don't look the way I look online in real life, and I've never thought that about any of my friends either. I think I have a confused perception of my appearance, yet I also know it intimately because I've taken hundreds of photos of it and I've scrutinized every one down to the last pixel. I know what I look like in photos to an extent, but I'll never know how I look like through someone else's eyes, and that's both comforting and scary. I think if I spent less time online consuming content by objectively gorgeous people, I'd feel a little better about myself. I think social media distorts our idea of how most people look, because the most popular ones online are the ones who are gorgeous. So if we're constantly being fed these images of surreal beauty, then we start to think that that's normal and we're the ugliest thing on earth. I might not worry so much about mum taking photos of me on a special day, or I might not warn my brother not to post the family selfies we take when I'm barefaced in my pajamas. It goes back to that online self thing as always. Online I want to be beautiful, even if in real life I'm not all the time. When I'm out and about in real life, people watching, it really makes me realise how normal everyone is, in a good way, and how beautiful everyone is. Like, people are people and that's okay. We don't all need to be a Victoria's Secret model. I think going outside really is a great solution for insecurities and for fixing that idea sold by social media that we need to be the beautifulest of beautifuls because everyone's beautiful in an unattainable way. And let's not forget that social media profits from making us think we're hideous. Like, the more time we spend consuming content that promises to fix that, the more they get from us. I also hate how social media really sells this unconventional and conventional beauty thing. Someone who's unconventionally attractive is someone who's hot, but not white, or not skinny, or is visibly queer in some way. I think it would be awesome if we could just call hot people hot. It's just such a backhanded compliment that only breeds more insecurity and prejudice. I never see someone I fancy and think to myself, gosh, they don't fit into the mould, do they? Well, I like them though, even if they are a bit unconventional, like it's some kind of charity for me to find them cute. No, I think something stupid like, oh my god, I can't believe all those cells came together to make you in this way. Thank God for atoms. I don't know what atoms are. It just sounds sciencey. Anyway, that's all I have to say on beauty and social media. So, those have been my thoughts on social media. I think most of all, I really worry about how social media changes how we relate to each other and connect to each other, and how we perceive reality and time and the present moment. I think it's really important to remember that we aren't perfect. We're messy and we make mistakes, and that's normal and human. And those things are necessary in relationships of any kind. Like, real connection happens in the present moment, in the unfiltered. It doesn't have to be in real life either. I have plenty of meaningful friendships that were built entirely online. But I think what glued us together so strongly is that we still had that real shared experience. And most of the time that was playing on Minecraft. But in that Minecraft gameplay, we all said things that were a bit off, that weren't properly thought through. We had fallouts and disagreements, and still decided to be friends and care about each other regardless. I think sometimes the people who see you for you don't always live on the same street or in the same town, country, or continent. Like I said earlier, I grew up feeling pretty outcasted, which I know what you're all thinking. How can someone so funny, smart, fashionable, kind, sweet, awesome, cool, etc. have felt like that growing up? But there was a time, trust me. No, but seriously, growing up, the friends I made online were so important to me. and I wouldn't be who I am without them. Though I'm sure being online at a young age has affected me in terrible ways, in this way it has benefited me. Thanks to the friends I made all over the world, I felt a little bit less lonely. And I've finally met some of my internet friends in real life recently. Shout out to my citizens. Your president loves you. And it was awesome. So I'm feeling ready to meet more now. So if anyone wants to sign up to be my next internet meetup, just put it on your Christmas list and Santa will deliver. I know him personally. So yeah, anyway, all that to say, internet friendships are real, they're just different. I think the cure to this dystopian way we connect with each other is to use it radically, to go out of our way to be a bit freaking annoying and reach out to people, send too many texts, actually try, and yeah, be obvious about the fact that you want someone in your life and that you want to know every side of them, not just the perfect picture they share online. Unless they tell you to stop, then stop. But I mean, have a proper conversation, ask questions, send memes and reels and pictures of your cat and your outfits and selfies. Don't be a robot. Be a real person and be so radically yourself. Go with your gut instead of overthinking every message. Ask for what you want and make your needs known. I also think opt for more intentional forms of communication, like emails, which are slow and sweet and allow for a lot of self expression and leave a lot of room for longer conversations, or voice notes, which allow you to hear someone's tone and how they speak, or even phone calls. Social media relies on short text based communication, but so much of our communication is non-verbal, first of all, but also is found in the tone of voice and pauses and how we say things in the moment. I guess you could do FaceTime too, but I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's out there for sure. We need to become comfortable with discomfort and risk. Once again, yes, opening yourself up to someone is scary, that they might see through the perfectly curated version of yourself that you show to the internet or the world and decide they don't want you is scary. But remember, there's just as much of a chance that they decide they do want you in their life. Not like, also that, I guess. I think social media tries to minimize that risk by giving us a false sense of safety in passive interactions and whatever I've already mentioned 1,000 times. It's convinced us in some way that we can bypass all the hard stuff. But the risk is also thrilling, and that thrill is an important part of connecting with others. I feel such a thrill when I'm talking to someone new who isn't the like free people I know I can say absolutely anything to. I love finding out how they respond to me, how they speak, how their voice echoes mine, and where we differ. What if we're not compatible? But what if we are? There's a romance to that thrill, and sometimes I think social media takes that away. It waters it down and turns it one dimensional. Chapel Roan said it best: love is a kaleidoscope, not a flat piece of paper. I also think we need to be more proactive when it comes to closure. Social media doesn't give us that, so we have to give it to ourselves. You can get a fuck you moment from posting pictures of yourself thriving and knowing that people who maybe hurt you in the past or put you down can see those, but you have to ask yourself, after a certain point, are you doing it for yourself or for them? And what really do you get from basing some of your worth on how they're maybe thinking of you? Finally, let yourself be human and let yourself be a bit of a freak. Trying to connect with people, despite society and social media encouraging us to lean into nonchalance, apathy, and individualism, is rebellion to me. Like, damn you, I'm going to love regardless and you can't do anything about it. I'm going to feel and feel and feel and be messy and be imperfect, and you can't take that away from me because I'm human. Love persists, because love is more than an emotion, it's a choice, and so we have to consciously choose to love our fellow people and reach out and tell them we care, and yeah, and there's hope in all of this too, and hope is naturally rebellious. The loneliness we're seeing and feeling online goes beyond social media. It's societal and systemic. We're increasingly forgetting how to interact with people in a meaningful way. We're scared of awkwardness and we're scared of taking risks and putting ourselves forward. We're so glued to our screens that we're more used to texting than talking in real time, and we're so anxious. And there's little to no resources available to fix any of this. And in fact, we're being encouraged to rely on our devices more and more, and things like third spaces where we can interact with people without having to pay are becoming rarer and rarer. We're stressed and overwhelmed and burnt out from working jobs that don't cover the cost of basic necessities, yet ask us to give them most of our waking hours. Obviously, I'm unemployed, but you know what I mean. We don't have the time or energy to spare for fulfilling social lives outside of our phones. And we're also having to watch the world burn and feeling hopeless and helpless. So, what's the point? The world we live in right now encourages and benefits from individualism, and it seeks to purposefully alienate us. Community, friendships, and relationships of any kind don't necessarily benefit those in power, those who thrive from our division and our alienation. It's why us versus them politics is so common. When we put the blame on our fellow man, it's harder to unite and find common ground, because there's common ground everywhere, really, chiefly in the fact that we are all suffering under the same systems right now. But no, men in ugly suits point their stubby fingers and we happily follow. We should rely on each other and provide for each other, but the world right now isn't built for that. Social media amplifies a problem that already exists, both as a result of the existence of social media and also as a natural consequence of the world we live in, capitalism. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at any of that, but I like to think I'm working on it or working towards it at the very least. Basically, we just have to make an effort. We have to make an effort and defiantly connect with people and stay connected and go above and beyond the bare minimum, I think, because we will lose what makes us human, and we will forget how to love each other and how to connect with each other and how to have empathy for each other. We will all have AI boyfriends named Xavier. I don't want an AI boyfriend named Xavier. Be radically open to connecting with other people and to embracing your humanness, I think, anyway. I haven't written an ending for today's podcast. My voice has deteriorated throughout the creation of it. I do apologize for that. And I apologize for all my tangents, and I feel like this is probably a bit longer than my usually already long podcast, but I have a lot to say. So, as usual, I would really love to hear other people's perspectives on this and your thoughts and feelings and what have you. I'm going to play us out on a song, my favourite song ever. Going to do an exclusive cover for you. Um, Goals, actually goals, AF. Literally, my life is beaches every single night, messy buns and Christmas lights. Literally, my life is skinny waist and high fashion, riding in the G-Wagon. Literally, my life is, ooh wee. I have everything reblogged on the screen, yeah. Ooh wee, I have everything reblogged in this on the screen. So back in real life, I still can't find a bay. Shoot, my local coffee shop still messes up my name. Hey, let's get lost in 1 million pins and tweets. I'll live my life like Kylie and buy expensive sweets. My nails will be long to get done anything. Oh, I can't read today, guys. I give up. Okay. Thank you.